Hello everyone! This month's Hauptstück tutorial is going to be about the Hengen. Now, this is a chapter where Lekühner goes off script a little bit. See, in the longsword glosses, if I recall correctly, the chapters on Hengen describe simply what they are, and then the Winden describe what you do with them. Lekühner puts all of that into the one chapter, and this is the one that we're going to be looking at right now. The chapter on Winden, the last one in the book, contains some more advanced windings that are specifically useful in Messer, but we will get to that next month. For now, let's look at what the Hauptstück tells us and how we can make it work. This chapter itself is somewhat limited in scope. It simply tells you that there are 4 hangers, somewhat corresponding to Stier and Eber, and that from each you need to be able to do 2 windings, making 8 in total. Lekühner then goes on to explain the 2 upper ones, but doesn't really bother with the rest. After all, you get the general idea, right? For all of these Stücke consist of what I, for lack of a better term, will call a closed and an open winding. The first one closes a line, while the other does not, instead working around the opponent's messer. Crucially, an open winding becomes a closed one if the opponent's messer goes to the other side of your blade, and vice versa. So here I think we should take a step back and consider a few things. First off, this is one of those Stücke that don't automatically turn into a fencing reality. It's pretty abstract, to be honest. It does hold some clues for how to make the windings work well for you though. The open winding always follows the closed winding. So first you simultaneously defend and attack, and afterwards you follow it up with a wind around your partner's parry. The text is maybe a bit abstract, but this situation should be pretty familiar to you by now. The closed windings can, for example, be followed up with a grapple for Messernehmen. And the open one is a great setup for Durchgehen. Just a bunch of examples, there's tons more. Windings have been there as a thread throughout the manuscript, and now we learn some general lessons about them. So to learn these lessons, I think it's useful to follow the Hauptstück at first and then build on it. We can use the by now very familiar parrying drill, where your partner attacks from left or right. After the students have made themselves comfortable parrying these attacks, introduce the windings. It's a good practice for coaches to occasionally not parry the first closed winding, as that checks whether the student actually performs all steps of the drill. Also a good practice would be for the coach to start delivering afterblows after a while. The easiest way for students to deal with those is to follow up the second open winding with a final closed one. This defends against the afterblow and allows for further controlling options afterwards if you should so desire. Of course, the next steps involve doing this as a competitive game, and then finally there will be sparring. Building on this in the next lesson, or perhaps for your advanced students already, you can throw in the lower windings against cuts and thrusts, for instance. And this should keep you occupied for a bit, even though it sounds very simple, because it takes a lot of effort to turn this into a second nature. For just like the windings are threaded all throughout Lekühner's book, so should they be threaded throughout your fencing. And that's what makes it the core of an art that I think is all about controlling the fight.